I made this joke product called the Meat on the Seat, which includes a storybook and a posable meat doll. I showed how I made Meat Man in my last video, so now it's time for the storybook. I busted out my wizard tip calculator to write the story on, which is proof that it has other functions besides calculating tips. My story highlights how shady Santa is and blows the whistle on his crimes against children. Next, I needed illustrations, so I taught myself how to paint with watercolors. And by taught, I mean that I bought some watercolor supplies and just went wild. I planned out which pages needed pictures, then sketched out each one with pencil before painting it. This was the most time-consuming part of the whole project. Some of the paintings only took around 3 hours to complete, while the more complicated ones, like the ones where Santa stuffs raw steak down his suit or directs his elves to throw sausages into a hole, took much longer. Overall, I painted 19 watercolors over the course of 11 days, sometimes staying up all night to get them done. The print shop called and said that my prints are ready, so I'm going to go pick them up and see how they turned out. I didn't show the computer design portion of the process because, ew, boring, but lining up the pages was more complicated than I thought it would be. Once I got home, I trimmed the tops of the pages to prepare them for binding. Then I folded them all in the middle and stacked them in groups of 4, which is really 8 pages if you think about it, which is actually 16 pages if you count both sides. I measured out 1-inch increments along the spine area and then stuck needles into it, much like acupuncture for books. Unlike acupuncture, I pulled thread through the spine holes to make sure everything stayed super tight and immobile. This book is going to need a serious page massage when I'm done here. The bookbinding tutorial I followed said these stacked pages are called signatures. I only have 2 signatures, so it was pretty easy to bind them together. After tying it off, I used squeeze knives to snip the excess. I don't know how to massage a book, so instead I put some soothing balm on its spine to make it feel better. The book doesn't know that the balm is actually glue, because turns out books are pretty dumb. You can literally just use glue to attach end papers and the book will be none the wiser. I'm getting tired of hanging around with this naked book though, so I'm going to make a cover for it. I cut some chipboard to size after making a bunch of boring measurements, then glued it to the back of the cover paper. I don't know why Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission sells this folding tool, but it comes in handy for angling the paper edges. After folding, I pasted the edges down with more soothing balm. Finally, I glued the end paper of the text block to the inside of the cover, which completes the book. Now it's time to make the packaging. I used a tiny spatula to flay the skin off an Elf on the Shelf box. Then I measured and cut my printed backing, making sure it would fit. Next, I slathered the box with glue. In case you haven't noticed, I used a ton of glue on this project. My apologies to the Dead Horse community. I'll try to use less of you in the future. I had to precisely measure where the chipboard panels would sit for the front cover of the box to make sure the printed images lined up properly. Yes, I then smeared more deceased horse paste onto the chipboard and carefully pressed it in place. I used the creepy walking hand technique to apply pressure, which you can see here. And here. Very effective. Then I trimmed down the edges of the paper and applied a bit more liquefied horse. I promise this is the last time. Okay, that was a lie. I had to use more white horse glue to attach the book sheath to the cover, and also to attach the cover to the back part of the box. Now it's time to put it all together. First, I installed the quadrupedal meat resident, made sure he felt comfy and at home. Next, the storybook. I'm pretty proud of this thing. I think it turned out great. It looks and feels like a legit children's book. I slid the book into its sheath under the cover and then closed the box. It is finished. Now, where should I display it? I thought it would look nice and cozy next to an Elf on the Shelf, so I took it to my local CVS and put it up in an empty space on the shelf. Nice to meet you.